boy, are you in for it tonight. Tonight, we're going to get back in our time ship, and I'm going to leave us right in a little bubble in the bushes in the Garden of Gethsemane. Tonight, we're going deep. Chewy, it's light speed. Hit it. Look, I'm not cruel. There's no way to do this better than to take along a child of God and to have them attempt to entice you to go into the fairy tale backyard. It's usually in the back or it's in the crypt, right? It's a space that the early Christians are creating this mystery rite. It's a place where we come back to a very serious topic. Today, I'm going to take you somewhere. I'm going to take you right to Gethsemane right now. We're going right now. You're going to love this. But in order to get there, I want to sacrifice, right? We're necromancers. And I'm assuming that you have your ears to hear and that you're sitting on the throne. We are necromancers, and this is how we function. We're going to bring this false reality to you, this fairy tale in the form of a dude. What we're doing is we're sacrificing tonight. Reverend Renner, his distinguished one, we're looking at his work because he has had the real courage to step forward and say, who is this naked kid with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane? So we catch him there, Mr. Renner. But we think that we're going to get an explanation. I'll tell you, be careful. We're going to go behind the building or into the crypt. Okay, we're going down there. And there's going to be some funny things that go on. Let's bring him up. Let's have a response to this fellow. We're going to do this in little tiny clips. Hit it.
Gethsemane was immense. It covered nearly the whole slope of the Mount of Olives. What we call the Garden of Gethsemane was much more than just trees. It was a cemetery. There were graves.
Yeah, first of all, the name Gethsemane, they'll tell you, right? The first thing he's going to tell you. He hasn't done it yet, but he will. He's going to tell you that this is from the Aramaic and it means the place of the oil press. Well, no, if it's from the Greek, it means the pleasure stones. The pleasure stones, isn't that a word for stones? This is a district. This is a district in a park area where there are things like cemeteries, monuments. Yeah, nice, love it. Anyway, and part of this is called the place. If it's in the Greek, it's place of the stone pleasure. It's a place that we know that Jesus hung out. It's a place that we know that Jesus hung out. Okay? Let's keep that. Let's keep that in mind. Okay, hit him again. Bring him again.
And Jesus came into the grotto to pray regularly with his apostles. And it was there that Jesus spoke the words, I am he. And the Bible tells us in John chapter 18 that all the soldiers who came to arrest him, when they heard those words, I am he, they began to do something very strange. All those soldiers began to go backward, and the King James Version says they fell to the ground.
Okay, so here we are. We're in the garden, and all of a sudden, a group comes up. These are not regular forces. Yeah, these are heavily armed members of the cohort. Yeah. Now, there's no indication of how many of them came. He drew from the cohort, though, to bring it. So we've got temple security, we've got local civic forces, and we've got a crack group these are the guys you send for the big bus. Yeah. Anyway, here they come. Here they come, and Judas has led them there. Fantastic. Now, it's going to get a little bit dark from here. It's going to get a little bit dark from here. He's going to tell us something happened. These soldiers suddenly got drowsy. Okay, now we're going behind the building. Yeah, now we are. Come on, kids. Yeah, you've got to know this. You don't know what his skill is. He can tell you. It's because the ancient Greek says it's that way. And let me tell you something. He is lying through his teeth. Let's just look at what the Greek says. Yeah. Okay, hit us another clip, please.
You read the Greek, the words go backward, really means to wobble, to stumble. They lost their bearing. And when the Bible says they fell, it's the Greek word pipto, which means to fall hard. Jesus released such a blast of divine power when he said those words, I am he, which in Greek literally mean I am.
Yeah. He set off, wait. Okay. That's when you realize it's dark, and you're in the basement. And you're like, what are we doing down here? Right? How many of us have found ourselves in that position? Right? What are we doing here? Jesus let off a what? Jesus had a blast of what? That's what the text says? Believe you because you said you do the Greek? That's what the text says? Really? Really? Let's go to the John 15, please. Or 18. This is John 18. This is the text that he's talking about. Yeah. Good. Look at starting at 6. Hos un epen autois ego eimi. That's the ego. The ego eimi is the response, right? So in the world of the basement, in the fairy tale, they will tell you Jesus spoke out, boom, like it's got a just magic. Everybody falls down. Woo! Right? It gets better. Just wait, it gets better. But that's not what the Greek says. That's not what the Greek says at all. Bring the Greek up again. What does it say? Ego eimi. Why is he saying ego eimi? He's saying I am. Because they asked him, are you Jesus of Nazareth? And he says, because it's a crowd a delegate of soldiers, right? They brought out the unit that takes down the real bad guys. They're heavily armed. Right? We're going to see this. Jesus makes a note of this. He says something out of his own mouth. Out of his own mouth. Tonight we have firsthand evidence. Right? We've been trying to establish a motive here for Jesus. And there are those of you who have been saying, things are not so bad. Right? We have to understand here that we can get rid of the religiosity, but we can't get rid of that core. Let's look at the core. I have no arguments for you. I have no opinions. You can quote me as saying nothing that thou shouldst do or not do anything. Yeah. Here, we serve the text, baby. This is the museum. We serve the text. Let's look at what that text says. John, bring him up. Excellent. Thank you so much. Apelthon eis ta opiso kai episan hamai. Yeah, so they said, are you Jesus? He said, I am. And it says they went around to his back. They circled him. They went around him so he couldn't get away. And epesan hamai, they fell on him. They attacked. The Greek uses this for falling all the time. All the time. The one enemy falls upon another. So they surround him and they take him, they start to arrest him. They grab him, right? And as they're going for him, Jesus says, let's go to the next text. This is okay. Yeah, this is the one from Mark. Yeah. So Yeah. As they go, so they're around him and they're the arrest is being made. The arrest is being made. They've identified who he is and they're taking him down. And what happens? Jesus responds to them, right? As they're coming on to him, he says, What have you come out here with your swords and with your clubs? That's a military club, right? It's a big thing. That's a big deal. They came out with battering rams this time and flash grenades, right? They came out and what did they say? Look at the end of the first line, hos. Hos, look at the two first words of the next line. Epi leistein. Go ahead and take it down. You're coming at me as if you're coming against or coming to arrest or coming to apprehend a leistes. What is that? What is that? People like to translate it as robber. Robber. But that doesn't make it. That doesn't quite make it there. Jesus says, what are you guys so heavily armed for? What'd you come out against me for? You look at your armed resistance. What'd you come out? Let's look at there we go. Here's the definition of leistes, right? It's from leidzo, for those of you who are in Greek, right? Good. And notice that they first give you robber or pirate, right? And you think to yourself, wait a minute, pirate? Jesus is saying, what you guys come out here so heavily armed like I'm a pirate? Right? Oh, well, what does that mean? Well, it's especially somebody at sea. So there's some kind of sea connection here. That's where we're getting pirate, brigand, buccaneer, right? Buccaneer. Later, pirates. Now you know where you get the word pirate from. Yeah, but what are these? Shiver me timbers? These aren't the guys that make Johnny Depp look good. This is not that kind of a pirate, right? These are sex traffickers. Chewy, bring up that same. Look at the very bottom. Used by Lycophron. Who is Lycophron? Lycophron is the poet who is preserving the song of Cassandra. Yeah, the song of Cassandra, who is the Bacchic Sibyl. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And you'll notice there in that Lycophron, it's okay, you'll notice there in that Lycophron that we have a reference to child abduction. Yeah, it turns out in antiquity, let me just lay this on you straight. You want to come to the Garden of Grave Delight. Here we are in this place. Take a whiff around. You know what you smell? You smell groups of traffickers who will sail into a port, jump off the ship armed with enough force to overwhelm the local authorities and take prisoner young men and young women, boys and girls. And if this kind of thing, why do they take them? To take them somewhere and traffic them, to sell them, right? To sell them. It's not very nice. It's not very nice indeed. Yes, but this is the word. The leistes is the word for this trafficker. And so when Jesus says, would you come out against me so heavily armed? What do you think I am, a trafficker? The fact that there's a naked kid standing next to him, and that verb that's used for accompany, when it says the naked boy was accompanying Jesus, that verb is a verb that is used of soldiers and of slaves. Soldiers and of slaves. Yeah. There was that boy accompanying him naked. Let's hear what else he has to say about the Go ahead.
Jesus was declaring that he was God in the flesh. And there was such a blast of power, it knocked all the soldiers to the ground. Eventually they got up They regained their bearings, and Jesus surrendered himself to them. And as they walked out of the grotto, out of the cave through this area, the Bible tells us in Mark chapter 14, verses 51 and 52, about something very unusual. It says, "Suddenly there appeared in the midst of them a naked boy with a linen cloth." Who is the naked boy in the Garden of Gethsemane?
Who is that naked boy in the Garden of Gethsemane? Alas, someone is finally talking about it. Nice job. Nice job. It's taken us, what is this, 1,400 years? We solved it once a long time ago. Oh, he's a cousin, right? Shh, he's a cousin. Now, okay, so let's see. This whole thing about the, we'll come back to the glory bomb in a minute. Don't play that video. We'll come back to the glory bomb in just a second. But the blowing off of the feet, you can see is not even in the text, right? And if you'll notice that translators since Tyndale have been following this same path. So you can track this man, Mr. Renner's education. You can get it down to his education about where he came up with these ideas. When he says, "I am," and lets off the glory bomb, causing all the soldiers to fall around, right? And by the way, that stuff he said about balance is not in that at all. It's not there at all. He's making stuff up. That's why I'm saying these are lies. He is making stuff up. There's nothing to do with staggering in that Greek, period. Nothing. They simply went around and took custody of him, right? Took him down. Yeah, it's a bust, right? It's a bust. And they've got a big unit out there. This is fantastic. Okay, hit him again.
Who is the naked boy in the Garden of Gethsemane? Why was there a naked boy, and why was he carrying a linen cloth? Well, the key is the words linen cloth. It is a Greek word which described a burial shroud. Well, all around the grotto, all around the Garden of Gethsemane, there were graves, including fresh graves. This was a dead boy. That's why he was carrying a linen cloth or a burial shroud. The Jews buried their people naked and covered them with that kind of a shroud. This boy was laying in his grave, and when Jesus spoke those words, "I am he," the same power that knocked 300 to 600 soldiers onto their back apparently touched a dead boy that had recently been buried. The boy came crawling out of his grave with his linen cloth, stumbles into the midst of the whole scene that's taking place in the Garden of Gethsemane, or here we find the moment of Jesus' arrest.
Okay. So if I got this straight, the fairy tale view is Jesus set off a glory bomb. The soldiers hit the deck, and because they were close to a fresh dead boy, he crawled out of the grave. I mean, this is zombies. Does anybody else see this is zombies? This man believes in zombies. Out comes this boy. Fantastic. Let's hit him one more time. This is just, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelmingly bad. When this man takes you into the back, okay, and he starts this act, right? You don't know that his Greek is wrong. It is. Plainly, openly. Yes. Okay. Let's finish him off. Give him one more time.
That was another miracle, a periphery resurrection. And when the soldiers and the religious leaders saw the resurrected boy, they said, "Somebody get that boy," because they didn't want news of another resurrection in that very moment. Jesus' power is simply immense. It shows up all the time. And today, I want to talk to you about Jesus' power showing up in your life.
Yeah, and that's how it starts. That's how it starts. Show me on the dolly. Yeah, that's how it starts. Did you hear how he's going in there in the end for the, he's going in. This is the hunt, right? He's preying on you. And he's going to come in. I want to show you Jesus' power. Wait a minute. You just made up a bunch of nonsense, right? Even what he said about the scene dome, right? It is not a burial shroud. It is not the word for burial shroud. It's the word for linen strip. It's just a piece of linen cloth. That's all. It's a piece of linen cloth. Yeah. And if this guy had had 5 minutes to read some Galen, he might see how these linen bandages work. Yeah. Yeah. The kid runs off naked. Jesus is calling himself a child sex trafficker. The people that show up. Oh, by the way, for those of you who want a little more context, by the way, with the child sex trafficking in antiquity, there we go. With the child sex trafficking in antiquity, sometimes it can get kind of formalized. And when the pirates show up, you have a certain number of, teens that they need to be given. Yeah, and that keeps them from coming back. Then they only come back once a year, right? And the mothers in antiquity are singing about these things. Yeah, about how terrible it is, to be taken in those captive and to have your child ripped from you in order to enter into this garden of delight, where these kids are sold off. Yeah, it's a big abduction, and abduction for the purposes of sexual abuse is a very prominent industry in antiquity. So when Jesus calls himself a trafficker, he's noticing, as you see, he's clearly pointing out, you've got the weapons, right? You brought the specialized unit, right? And this guy says 600. Right, because he thinks the Greek says he went to the cohort, he thinks he got every person in the unit. No, he didn't, right? And they didn't fall down because of the glory bomb. Don't we have some? Look, we tried to make a representation of this thing. Hit it, Chewy. See if it works.
Chance. That's enough.
Fantastic. I don't know if that captured it. And before we move on to our serious ending, I do need a moment of subliminal Zane. Do you have just a moment of subliminal Zane? There we go. Fantastic. You can check that out later. By the way, thank you, Zane, for the contribution of all your music. Yeah, I hope you like what I'm doing with it. Thank you very much. What do we do with that glory bomb, right? So we're in a situation now where, look, guys, we have an option. I can't keep taking you back to these scenes and exposing you to them without it seriously affecting us all. Right? So we have to understand, we have to get it clear that we're talking about a time and a place and very specific things, very specific historical events. And the only thing that we can trust is the language. The language preserves this. The language preserves what the actual statement was that Jesus made. He said, "You're arresting me." He said, what? You're arresting me like I'm a pirate of people. Like I'm a sex trafficker. So, known accomplices, prostitutes, and accountants. Arrested in a public park at 4 a.m. with a naked boy. Armed resistance was provided. So we think we've come to the place that Jesus regularly hangs out, where he does his biz. You don't see him doing any carpentry, do you? Right? But he is hanging out with prostitutes and accountants, with naked boys in places that we know are the necromancers' hang. Just place to hang. Right? He's waiting there for the dawn. He's waiting there for the dawn. You know the process of trading children in antiquity is directly connected with cult mystery. Are you surprised? You shouldn't be. Jehovah has his Ganymede, right? We understand this. So we provide Jesus. It looks like we've got enough evidence to say that there is a direct association between Jesus, aka the Christ, and the sex trade, first century, first third of the first century. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. It's important to me because you trust me. It's important to me to give you the most accurate information possible. So when I'm showing you those words, that's why I'm trying to give you the philological background and to show you, hey, see this? It's just translating here this, right? Because I have nothing to sell you. Now, Reverend Glory Bomb, we'll just call him, Reverend Glory Bomb, who has, for those of you who say it's too much, you're being too harsh on Reverend Glory Bomb. No. We raid these basements. And when we find the evangelicals and the Catholics, when we find the Presbyterians and the Baptists, and we find the Free Church of Christ and the Holy Immaculate Nationalist Association of we're going to take over the world, when we find them taking people into places where they're taking advantage of them, it's our duty to stand up to that. Yeah. So far what we've got, I wanted to show you a little bit of the prophecy of Cassandra, and I wanted you to see there's some lovely imagery there and some talk of what you can do with your daughters. You can dedicate your daughters to the temple and they'll be protected. And we as members of the community who worship Hecate and protect those virgins, we take up weapons, stones, bows, against those pirates who we catch with our children naked. It turns out the chief pirate is the Son of God. Get your hands off him. Parents were saying, get your hands off him. All right? Stop touching my children. That's what people told Jesus. He was like, don't scandalize me. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. When the priest is, I just want to finish with Gautier. When the priest at his ordination sees the vampiress and knows the beauty, he gains a perspective and he can never go back. His God's righteousness turns into oppressive pain. Yeah. Because he's seen her and he knows. Yeah. Gautier, thank you. Tonight, I've taken up 30 minutes of your time, and I believe that that's all the time that I will take up tonight. I want to make an announcement before we go. I want to make an announcement that Friday we will be having our fight club where only the sons of Heracles will be allowed to enter. I've told Chewy, you don't get in without your wig and your Victoria's Secret, right? We should bleep that out, should I not? Yeah, here he is, right? Heracles, you love him? You love his gown? Look, there's the queen. There's the queen, there she is. So you don't get into the fights unless you come in proper kit. And we will be taking what the movement that we've been, the forward motion that we've been accumulating. We're going to take that, we're going to drive that into the form of the practicing, the working of the mystery. Yeah, we're going to expose that to people so that they can see, right? Let's get back in the ship. This is enough of Gethsemane, right? This is enough. We're there. We see Jesus. He's calling himself a child trafficker, right? Not only that, but remember, guys, he shows up with the stuff, the goop all over him. They don't know what that is. What's he been doing with that kid? What's that rag for, right? They don't know these things, right? It always comes back to that Dracaina that our prophetess Cassandra talks about, who bears that venom. It always comes back to her. Cassandra says she has the dipsass. She calls her the very same title of Jesus's anti-venom that he didn't get on the cross, right? That's hers. That's hers. Thank you, Magdal, the Scythian Maga. That's fantastic. You see, there's a brighter. We've been looking at Jesus, the child trafficker with his naked boy, right? But there's a much brighter light around it that is divine. And that's her. The fact that she is controlling from the back room, right? It's amazing. It's magic control. Love it. Mary the Magdal. Yeah, fantastic. Scythian word for Maga. Yeah. Now, wait a minute. You thought Magdalene was from this in the Hebrew. No, it's not. Yeah, it's not. You mean I shouldn't have studied Hebrew in seminary? No, you shouldn't have. You're wasting your time. Yes, it's all in Greek, bro. Just read it. Read it. Pirate, leistes, and realize that every time you go to church, and every time you take that communion, and every time you give your attention to that power, you are propping up history's most popular child sex trafficker. I think that's it. Let's call it there. But before we do, let's take one more look at the image. Let's take one more look at the image of where we're getting all of this viper venom, this dipsass. Go ahead. Hail Satan, and if you can, avoid the pirate who sells children and any of his followers.